Ryan's office revenge.
It's not a priority right now. 5 words, that's what she said when I walked into her office for the 3rd time in 6 weeks. Paula Martinez from HR didn't even look up from her paperwork while I stood there explaining how my manager had been systematically stealing wages from my entire team for 10 months. My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm 48 years old. I've been working in logistics and warehouse operations for 15 years total, the last 8 at this Fortune 500 company. Started in smaller operations before moving here for better benefits and stability. I'm not the guy who causes problems. I'm the guy who solves them. Army background, straight shooter, show up early, leave late, take care of my people. That's how I was raised, that's how I served in 2 deployments overseas, and that's how I work. But when they started stealing from my family's future, they picked the wrong fight. Before we continue, if this story sounds familiar, or if you've ever felt invisible at your own workplace, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in my position. Your support means everything and it keeps these stories coming. Let me back up and tell you how this whole mess started. When I first came to this company 8 years ago, I was making $18 an hour as a dock supervisor. Nothing fancy, but it was honest work. I knew equipment, I knew how to manage people, and I knew how to get things done on time. Worked my way up through shift lead, then operations coordinator, finally to operations supervisor running a team of 8 good men. My current supervisor salary was $67,000 when all this trouble began. Fair money for fair work. Enough to cover my mortgage on our little house, my wife Sarah's ongoing medical bills from her cancer treatment, and we were even putting money aside for our son's college fund. Jordan's 17 now, a junior in high school, looking at engineering programs just like his old man always hoped he would. Smart kid. Gets that from his mother, not me. Sarah used to work as an accountant before she got sick, had to stop when the treatments got too much, but she still keeps our books at home, always double-checking my math, making sure we're saving what we can. Every dollar counts when you're planning for the future, she always says. Woman's got a head for numbers that makes my military logistics training look like finger counting. Our life wasn't complicated, but it was good. I'd come home after my shift, help Jordan with his homework, have dinner with Sarah when she was feeling up to it. Simple routine, but it worked. We had plans. Jordan was going to be the first Thompson to graduate college. Sarah's treatment was going well. I had maybe 17 more years until retirement, and we were on track. Everything changed when they brought in the new regional manager last year. Her name was Cecile Rodriguez. 34 years old, MBA from some expensive East Coast school, hired from outside the company with a mandate to optimize operational efficiency. That's corporate speak for figure out how to spend less money on the people who actually do the work. She had this way of talking like everything was a strategic business opportunity, even casual conversations by the coffee machine. First time I met her, she called our warehouse a legacy operation with significant optimization potential. What she meant was these old guys are expensive, and I'm here to fix that problem. The red flags started immediately. During our first department meeting, her questions weren't about productivity or safety or customer satisfaction. She wanted to know how long everyone had been with the company, what our average ages were, who was eligible for retirement benefits soon. She called it assessing human capital allocation, but my gut said something different. In the Army, we had a saying that I learned the hard way during my second deployment. When someone starts measuring you instead of working with you, they're not planning to help you succeed. They're planning to replace you. But I figured I was being paranoid. Maybe she was just thorough. Maybe her questions were standard procedure for new management. I'd been with the company 8 years, had good performance reviews, never missed deadlines. My team respected me. Upper management trusted me with the big shipments. What could go wrong? Cecile spent her first 6 months walking around the warehouse, talking to everyone, taking notes on everything. She'd show up during shift changes, asking questions about overtime patterns. She'd sit in on team meetings, observing how we handled problems. Always smiling, always friendly, but there was something calculating in the way she watched us work. She paid special attention to the supervisors and team leads. All of us guys who'd been there a while, who knew the systems inside and out. Danny Murphy, my lead dock worker, 20 years with the company. Eddie Kowalski, equipment operator, 15 years. Steve Chambers, maintenance supervisor, 18 years. All of us over 40, all of us making decent money because of annual increases over the years. The younger guys, the ones hired in the last couple years, she barely talked to them except to ask about their career goals and ambitions. Looking back, I should have seen the pattern. She was sorting us into categories: keepers and problems, cheap labor and expensive experience. 6 months after Cecile arrived, She called a department meeting for all supervisors and team leads. 10 of us total gathered in the main conference room, the one with the big table and the whiteboard that nobody ever cleaned properly. She had PowerPoint slides printed out on regular paper because our building still didn't have a working projector. Professional presentation about organizational restructuring for enhanced operational efficiency. Lots of charts and graphs showing how our department costs compared to industry standards. Made it look like we were hemorrhaging money even though our productivity numbers were solid and customer complaints were practically non-existent. Then came the big announcement. Management Track Advancement Program. My name was on the list along with 7 other guys, all of us between 42 and 58 years old. All of us getting promoted to exempt salaried positions with expanded leadership responsibilities and strategic decision-making authority. The salary bump looked decent on paper, $72,000 instead of $67,000. But sitting there listening to Cecile explain the exciting opportunities for professional growth, something felt wrong. Why would they promote all the experienced supervisors at exactly the same time? Why were all the younger team leads staying hourly? That night, I went home and sat down with Sarah at our kitchen table. Spread out all the paperwork Cecile had given us, pulled up my old pay stubs on the computer, started doing math. I'd been averaging 48 to 50 hours a week for the past year, sometimes more during busy shipping seasons. That overtime was pulling in an extra $8,000 to $10,000 annually beyond my base salary. This promotion to $72,000 would actually cost me money if I kept working the same hours, which Cecile had made clear was still expected. Something's not right here, Sarah said, looking over the calculations. Even with the cancer treatments, her accountant brain was still sharp as ever. Why would they promote everyone your age at exactly the same time? And look at this. She pointed to a section in the paperwork about management commitment expectations. Reading through the fine print, we found language about flexible scheduling expectations and commitment to operational excellence beyond traditional hourly constraints. Corporate speak for working whenever they wanted us to work without overtime compensation. Marcus, Sarah said, pushing the papers across the table, this isn't a promotion. This is them figuring out how to get more work out of you for less money. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about advancing careers or building leadership skills. This was about reclassifying the most expensive employees to avoid paying overtime. All of us targeted for this opportunity were the guys making decent money because we'd been there long enough to earn regular raises. All of us had families, mortgages, responsibilities that made it hard to just walk away from steady employment. When I tried to decline the promotion the next morning, Cecile asked me to come to her office for a private conversation. Her door was always open, she said, for team members who wanted to discuss their career development. Marcus, I'm a little surprised, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. This is a significant opportunity for professional advancement. Most people in your position would be excited about joining the management track. I kept my voice level respectful. I appreciate the offer, but I'm concerned about the financial impact. With overtime, I'm currently earning more than the proposed salary would provide. She leaned back in her chair, that smile never quite reaching her eyes. I understand your concern, but you're thinking about this the wrong way. You're not an hourly worker anymore. You're being paid for the value you bring to the organization, not the time you spend here. This role comes with autonomy, decision-making authority, strategic responsibility. What specific decisions would I be making that I'm not making now? Well, she paused, shuffling some papers. You'll be involved in departmental planning, resource allocation, performance optimization initiatives. I'd been running the same operations for 3 years. I knew exactly which suppliers delivered on time and which ones always shorted their shipments. I knew which equipment needed maintenance, and when I planned shift schedules, allocated resources, optimized performance every single day. Nothing about her description suggested any change in my actual responsibilities. Can I stay hourly? I asked. Her expression tightened just slightly. Marcus, I'm offering you growth here, leadership development, a chance to advance your career instead of just maintaining the status quo. Don't you want to move forward professionally? The way she said it made me feel like I'd asked something unreasonable. Like I'd suggested we just stop shipping products entirely. My face got warm. Military training taught me to respect the chain of command, to trust that superior officers had information and perspective I didn't have. I'll need to discuss this with my family, I said. Of course you have until Friday to let me know your decision. I need to finalize all the paperwork for the new organizational structure. That night, Sarah and I sat up until almost midnight going through our budget, calculating different scenarios, trying to figure out if we could afford for me to take a stand. Jordan needed new textbooks for his advanced placement classes. Sarah's next round of treatment was scheduled for the following month. Our emergency fund was decent, but not enough to cover months of unemployment if this went badly. Maybe it won't be as bad as we think, Sarah said, though her voice suggested she didn't believe it. Maybe they really will limit the extra hours. I wanted to believe that too. On Friday, I accepted the promotion. The first month wasn't terrible. I worked 43 hours one week, 46 the next. Maybe Cecile really was trying to build a more efficient operation that didn't require constant overtime. Maybe I'd been overthinking the whole situation. Then the second month, things started changing. Cecile began scheduling weekend inventory assessments. "We need to verify space allocation before the big shipments next week," she'd explained Friday afternoon. "I'm counting on my management team to ensure operational readiness." 6 hours every Saturday morning, walking through the warehouse with clipboards, counting products we'd already counted during the week. No extra compensation because we were salaried exempt now. "This is part of your leadership development," she'd remind us when anyone looked tired. The third month brought strategic planning sessions on Sunday afternoons, 3-hour meetings about optimizing workflows and improving customer satisfaction metrics. We'd sit in that same conference room reviewing reports we'd already reviewed, discussing solutions to problems that didn't exist. By the fourth month, I was working 61 hours in a single week, Monday through Friday regular shifts, plus Saturday inventory, plus Sunday planning, plus staying late Tuesday and Thursday for urgent shipments that somehow always required supervisor oversight. I started keeping detailed records, time in, time out, specific tasks assigned, justification for extended hours. Military habits die hard, and documentation had saved my unit more than once when superior officers needed answers about resource allocation and mission timelines. My little notebook filled up fast. Every conversation where Cecile implied that management commitment meant unlimited availability. Every meeting that could have been a 10-minute email but stretched to 2 hours because she was fostering collaborative leadership. Every weekend assignment justified as operational necessity when the real necessity was hitting her cost reduction targets. I also started noticing patterns in who was affected by these new expectations. The 8 supervisors and team leads who got promoted to exempt status were all over 40. All of us had significant tenure with the company. All of us had reached salary levels that reflected years of annual increases and good performance reviews. The younger supervisors in other departments stayed hourly. Recent hires stayed hourly. Even some team leads with similar responsibilities to ours remained eligible for overtime compensation. The pattern was obvious once you looked for it. Cecile was systematically targeting the most expensive employees to eliminate overtime costs without reducing operational demands. Danny Murphy, my lead dock worker, started asking questions. Danny's been with the company 20 years, started as a loader, worked his way up through experience and reliability. Good man, Marine veteran, father of 3 daughters he's putting through college. Skip, he called me one Friday evening as we were finishing up another 12-hour day. "This ain't right. You're working yourself into the ground for less money than you used to make." What's the real story here? Danny's question hit me harder than it should have. Here was a guy who'd served his country, worked his way up through honest effort, watching his supervisor get played by corporate manipulation. I respected Danny's opinion, trusted his judgment, and if he could see what was happening, then I wasn't being paranoid. "The real story is they found a legal way to steal our overtime," I told him. "Promote us to exempt status, keep the same workload, pocket the difference." "That's got to be illegal somehow," Danny said. "You're doing the exact same job you did before, just without the overtime pay." That conversation stayed with me over the weekend. Monday morning, instead of going straight to work, I stopped by the local library and spent an hour researching federal labor laws on their computers. What I found was the Fair Labor Standards Act, specifically the sections about exempt versus non-exempt employee classifications. According to federal law, to be legally classified as exempt from overtime, your primary duties have to involve management of the enterprise or a department, supervision of other employees, or exercising discretion and independent judgment about significant business matters. None of that described my actual job responsibilities. I counted inventory. I verified shipment manifests. I organized logistics schedules. Important work, absolutely necessary work, but not management work. I didn't hire or fire anyone. I didn't set company policy or make strategic business decisions. The computer system told me where products needed to go based on existing customer orders, and I made sure they got there on time. That same week, I reached out to Jake Morrison, the union representative for our hourly workers. Even though supervisors weren't part of the union, Jake had 25 years of experience dealing with company policies and management tactics. "Marcus, what you're describing sounds like wage theft with a promotion certificate attached," Jake said when I explained the situation. "They're targeting you older guys specifically because you cost more in overtime. That's probably age discrimination on top of the wage theft." Jake referred me to a labor attorney in town who offered free consultations for workers with potential federal violations. The attorney confirmed what I suspected. My job duties didn't qualify for exempt status under federal guidelines, and the pattern of targeting employees over 40 could constitute age discrimination under Equal Employment Opportunity Commission regulations. Armed with this information, I scheduled my first meeting with Human Resources. Paula Martinez had been with the company for 20 years, worked her way up from payroll clerk to HR director. Her office smelled like vanilla air freshener and corporate liability concerns. I think there might be classification errors with the recent supervisor restructure, I said, keeping my tone professional and respectful. My job duties haven't substantially changed, but my overtime eligibility has been eliminated. Paula wrote something in her notepad, nodding like she was taking my concerns seriously. Our legal team reviews all position classifications thoroughly before implementation. I'm confident everything is in compliance with federal regulations, but I'll double-check the documentation. 2 weeks passed, nothing changed. I was still working 55-hour weeks for straight salary while younger supervisors in other departments collected overtime for similar responsibilities. I scheduled a second meeting with Paula and brought documentation this time. Printouts of the Fair Labor Standards Act guidelines, a detailed list of my actual daily tasks, examples of my timesheets showing consistent 50-plus hour weeks. Our attorneys have reviewed all our exempt classifications, Paula said, barely glancing at my documentation. You're correctly categorized based on your supervisory responsibilities and the professional judgment required for your role. I don't supervise anyone directly, I explained. I coordinate logistics and verify shipments. That's operational work, not management work. You exercise professional judgment in determining inventory allocation and distribution priorities, she said, reading from what looked like a prepared script. That qualifies as discretionary decision-making under federal guidelines. I left her office feeling smaller than when I'd entered. Maybe I was wrong about the law. Maybe I didn't understand the complexities of employment classification. Maybe I should just accept the new structure and stop making trouble. At home that evening, Sarah found me staring at my laptop screen, second-guessing everything I thought I knew about workers' rights and fair compensation. "What's wrong?" she asked, settling into the chair next to me despite the fatigue from her treatment that day. I explained the HR meeting, Paula's dismissive response, my growing doubt about whether I had any legitimate grounds for complaint. "Let me see that federal law you printed out," Sarah said. She read through the exemption criteria slowly, comparing them to my actual job description. "Marcus, this is black and white. You don't manage people. You don't set policy. You don't make strategic decisions. You organize shipments and count inventory. That's not exempt work, no matter how they want to spin it." Over the next few weeks, I started talking quietly with the other guys who'd been reclassified. Eddie Kowalski, equipment operator, 15 years with the company. Steve Chambers, maintenance supervisor, 18 years. Tony Reeves, quality control lead, 12 years. All of them working 50, 60-hour weeks now without overtime compensation. All of them feeling trapped between accepting exploitation and risking their jobs by complaining. "My youngest daughter starts college next year," Eddie told me during lunch break. "I can't afford to get fired for causing problems, but I also can't afford to keep working for free. My wife's been asking why I'm never home anymore," Steve said. How do I explain that they promoted me into working more hours for less money? The more we talked, the clearer the pattern became. 8 experienced workers, all over 40, all earning higher wages due to years of service, all suddenly reclassified to eliminate overtime costs. Meanwhile, Cecile was getting recognition from upper management for reducing departmental expenses by 38% without any decline in productivity. 6 weeks after my second HR meeting, I scheduled a third appointment with Paula. This time I wasn't polite, wasn't careful, wasn't worried about maintaining professional relationships. I was exhausted. Cecile had scheduled 3 weekend inventory sessions in 1 month. I'd worked 54 hours, then 57, then 62. My back ached from lifting boxes on Saturdays. My marriage was strained because I was never home. Jordan had stopped asking for help with his homework because I was always too tired to concentrate. I'm working 60-hour weeks for the same pay I made 3 years ago. I told Paula during that third meeting, "This isn't legal. I know it's not legal. I've read the regulations, I've documented everything. Something needs to change." Paula didn't write anything down this time. She just looked at me with an expression that might have been exhaustion or annoyance. "It's not a priority right now," she said. "We'll look into it eventually." I walked out of her office and sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes. I wasn't emotional about it anymore. I was past that. Now I was calculating. In the Army, when command structure fails you, you don't abandon your mission. You find another chain of command that actually functions. That night, Sarah and I sat at our kitchen table one more time. But instead of going over budgets or analyzing regulations, I opened my laptop and pulled up the Department of Labor website. "You're really going to do this?" she asked. "They had 3 chances to fix it internally." I said, 3 meetings, 3 opportunities to address a clear federal violation. They chose to ignore it. I filed 2 separate complaints that night. One with the Department of Labor for wage theft and improper classification. Another with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for age discrimination. Both agencies accept online submissions and both take these violations seriously when there's proper documentation. The forms were extensive, but I was prepared. Employee information, employer details, comprehensive description of violations, supporting evidence, witness testimony. I listed all 8 targeted supervisors by name and tenure. I documented the age pattern in the reclassifications. I included screenshots of Cecile's internal communications about human capital optimization. I attached evidence showing her bonus structure was directly tied to reducing labor costs. Most importantly, I demonstrated that her cost savings came from systematic exploitation of experienced workers approaching higher benefit costs and pension eligibility. Not efficiency improvements, not technological advances, just plain theft of earned wages from people who'd given years of loyal service. I submitted both complaints at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Then I closed the laptop and went to bed. 4 days later, Danny came running across the warehouse floor. Actually running, which Danny never did. 20 years of steady, reliable work, and I'd never seen him move faster than a determined walk. Skip. Federal investigators just showed up. 2 different agencies. They've got badges, briefcases, and they're requesting payroll records going back 2 years. I kept working on my shipping manifest, 347 units of industrial components, properly verified, ready for Friday delivery to our biggest client. Just another Thursday, just another routine logistical task. Any idea what that's about? Danny asked. I looked up from my clipboard and smiled. I think someone just made wage theft and age discrimination a priority. The investigation took 8 weeks. Federal agents interviewed every affected supervisor, analyzed 2 years of payroll data, reviewed email communications about organizational restructuring, and examined management bonus structures tied to cost reduction. They also pulled Cecile's personnel file, her hiring justification, and her performance reviews that specifically praised her ability to reduce legacy labor expenses. What they discovered exceeded even my expectations. Cecile hadn't just stolen overtime wages from 8 supervisors. She'd systematically targeted 14 employees across multiple departments, all over age 40, all with significant tenure, all approaching pension eligibility or higher healthcare costs. The total stolen wages amounted to $430,000. The age discrimination pattern was so obvious that the EEOC investigator called it textbook targeting of protected class employees. Cecile didn't just get fired, she got federally charged with conspiracy to defraud employees, age discrimination, and coordinating wage theft across multiple departments. The company's legal team threw her completely under the corporate bus, claiming her actions violated company policy and exceeded her authority. She had to return $89,000 in bonuses earned through illegal labor practices, the house she'd bought with that money, listed for sale to pay legal fees. Her MBA career trajectory? Good luck explaining federal employment law violations to future employers. My back paycheck was $23,400, 8 months of stolen overtime calculated with interest and penalties. Sarah and I deposited it the same day we received it. 2 weeks later, corporate called me for a meeting. They offered me Cecile's position. Regional operations manager, $95,000 salary, legitimate exempt status with actual management responsibilities, authority over hiring and policy decisions. We need someone with integrity to rebuild trust in this division, the vice president told me. Someone who understands both operations and employee rights. I accepted the position. My first official act was reclassifying all illegally exempt supervisors back to hourly status with full overtime eligibility. My second was implementing quarterly audits to ensure compliance with federal labor standards. Paula Martinez transferred to another facility in another state. Danny Murphy got promoted to shift supervisor, properly classified as hourly with overtime. Jordan starts engineering school this fall. Sarah's latest treatment results show continued improvement. Sometimes colleagues ask if I was scared to file those federal complaints. Of course I was scared. But I was also a 48-year-old veteran with a sick wife and a son heading to college. When someone threatens your family's security and your earned benefits, fear becomes fuel for action. Cecile's former office remained empty for 2 months before they converted it to supply storage. Sometimes I walk past and see boxes of paper, extra equipment, filing supplies. No nameplate, no personal items, just empty space where someone used to calculate how much money they could save by stealing from loyal employees. The system works when you know which system to use. Documentation defeats manipulation every time. And sometimes the best way to make your voice heard is to hand your evidence to people whose job it is to listen. thank you for staying with this story. If you've ever felt like your years of loyalty didn't matter to management, like your experience was seen as expensive rather than valuable, I hope this shows you that standing up works when you do it right. Hit that subscribe button if this resonated with you. Share it with anyone who's ever been told their workplace concerns aren't a priority. Drop a comment about a time you had to choose between staying quiet and fighting back. Your experience matters, your voice counts, and sometimes making noise is exactly what changes everything.